Assalamu alaikum, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I am really grateful to my friend Afzal Usmani Sahab for giving me this opportunity to talk to you on a very important topic. Aligarh Muslim University, Government, Parliament and Judiciary. I have spoken number of times on judiciary, how AMU's minority character cases went to Supreme Court and Allahabad High Court, what kind of judgments were given by them, what are shortcomings of those judgments. I have been, as you know, very closely involved with AMU's minority character fight since 2005. But lately, I don't feel like doing too much of public speaking, as I have been rightly advised that I should concentrate on writing. And therefore, I tried my best to opt out of this lecture, but Afzal Saab, as a good persuasive lawyer, did not allow me to do that. Now what I want to do this evening in India and morning in Washington, is to look at AMU's relationship with government, what kinds of debates took place in Parliament, what kind of amendments were passed about Aligarh Muslim University Act 1920, and of course, look at how Aziz Basha judgment was delivered by the Supreme Court, and then 3 judgments given by Allahabad High Court. One by the single judge, Justice Arun Tandon, and then a divisional bench of Chief Justice A.N. Ray and Justice Ashok Bhushan, who is now the judge in the Supreme Court of India. Now, before I do that, I think it is in the fitness of things that we go back to history. Because I have spent last 15 years in arguing that it is wrong to say that Aligarh Muslim University was established in 1920. I believe that no new institution was born in 1920. It was the same old MAO college which now became Aligarh Muslim University. And I am not saying something in the air. Supreme Court of India said it in Aziz Basha in 1968 that MAO college was the nucleus of Aligarh Muslim University. Allahabad High Court also accepted this observation. This has been mentioned in the debate of parliaments. So in my opinion, it was the same institution which graduated from a college to a university. I was somebody's son, and as I become vice chancellor, I become a statutory authority, but I still remain somebody's son. So I think it is important that we look at what was government's relationship with MAO college. And we look at what was the intention of the visionary founder of Aligarh Muslim University, Sayyid Alayhi Rahma, in designing and devising an institution and then laying down on his own the kind of relationship this institution will have with the government. As all of you know, that such great and cordial was the relationship of MAO College with the government of India and of Aligarh Muslim University with the government of India that almost all governor generals and all viceroys, with some exceptions here and there, have paid a visit. So much so that even on the foundation of the college in 1877, Lord Lytton himself was present. And therefore, many of us who think that government is against us, have not looked at history. I think the central argument I am going to make in this lecture today is that governments accepted AMU as a minority institution. Parliament did not dilute AMU's minority character. I am going to demonstrate even 1965 infamous, notorious ordinance, an amendment introduced at the behest of Chagla Sahab, did not take away the minority character. And therefore, many of us got misled because government did not educate us about its intentions. But before I go to that, let me start from the very beginning. If the highest official of the British India is present at the foundation laying ceremony, that means Government of India was more than willing to patronize and support the college. Of course, the Government of India also arranged a big piece of the land for MAO College. But what about Sir Syed himself? MAO College and the society which had set up MAO College was registered as a society. And the rules of management were drafted by Sir Syed and Justice Mahmood. And detailed rules were there. Many of us are not aware of these rules. And as a student of law and as a beneficiary of Sir Syed's mission, I think it is my duty to apprise my audience the kind of governance Sir Syed himself has provided for MAO College. And I am going to demonstrate that when Government of India drafted 1920 Act, of course it consulted us, of course we gave the drafts, and of course 1920 Act by and large retained the provisions of rules of governance provided by the founder. Sir Syed's laws of governance of MAO College had 19 chapters, as many as 11 schedules. And when I got them typed in 2005 by a very young, energetic, newly appointed personal assistant, Mr. Asadullah Khan, it came in 170 long legal pages. These are not few pages. Of course, Asadullah Khan also took dictation of some 10,000 pages, which were compiled in 10 volumes and subsequently filed by the Government of India. These rules in Schedule 4 listed number of 25 government promissory bank notes worth 47,000. One endowment was of Nawab of Rampur and a government promissory note waqfi of rupees 10,000. Sir Syed himself was a secretary and Justice Mahmood, joint secretary. But the rules provided that the position of secretary and joint secretary will be unpaid positions. Today, if there is a delay in the payment of salary, of course, there should not be any delay, but if there is a delay, we get really worried. You remember in Jamia also, when there were financial difficulties, teachers of Jamia had given in writing that they will not accept more than a small meager amount of some 20-30 rupees as their salary. Clause 2 of these laws of MAO College provide and clarify the doubt which some people have about Sir Syed's intention and the kind of institution which he was going to establish and the character of the institution. It very clearly laid down in the object of the college, the nature of the college, and I am quoting, the object of the college shall be primarily the education of Mohammedans, and so far as may be consistent therewith of Hindus and other persons. This is exactly the same Supreme Court will say in Re Kerala Education Bill, and then repeat in subsequent cases that minority institutions are primarily for the minority that has established that institution. Supreme Court itself has said, and it was quoted in TMAPI also, that a minority institution shall have only sprinkling of outsiders. What kind of government and MAO college relationship was there? Detailed, futuristic, highly significant rules, consistent with modern minority jurisprudence, were laid down by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Rule 37 provided that the visitors of the college shall consist of persons mentioned in Schedule 3rd of this code and such other persons as trustees may select as their visitors. Kindly see the names given in the schedule. Sir William Moyer, Sir John Strachey, Sir Auckland Colvin, Nawab Sir Salar Jung, Muirud-Dawla, Mukhtarul Mulk, Sir Laiq Ahmad Khan Bahadur. And then Rule 38 provided that Director of Public Instruction, Northwestern Provinces and Awadh will be an ex officio visitor. So the rules themselves provided involvement of government. And I am going to tell you in a minute why Sir Syed envisaged this involvement of government. Rule 144. The government shall have power at any time and in any way to call for an examination of accounts of college or any branch or department thereof. Rule 145. The government shall have the power to institute an inquiry with a view to ascertaining whether the provisions of laws of college for the time being in force are duly complied with, and if not, to compel the trustees to comply with them. This is the same power which in 1920 the AMU Act provided, and which Section 13 today provides, that the Visitor of India can order visitorial inquiry. To do what? To see that Act, statutes, ordinances, regulations are complied with. And if there is anything done contrary to Act, statutes, ordinances, visitor has the right to annul that provision. Rule 146 also provided that the government can remove a trustee if a resolution is passed by 2/3 majority of the trustees. If an amendment is to be made to the rules, it clearly provided that such an amendment will need the concurrence of the government. That brings me to another aspect of today's talk when I quote to you some of the statements from the long lectures which were given by the Governor Generals, by the high government officials when they visited AMU. Lord Elgin, Viceroy of India, 1897, this is what he said. The college during the 22 years of its existence made much greater progress in numbers, in buildings, and in reputation than we had ventured to hope. It is still, however, very far from the attainment of ultimate end set before us, and which we cannot hope to live to see the foundation of it, that is, of a university for Mohammedans of India, similar to great English universities of Oxford and Cambridge, unquote. Mr. Beck, from MAO College, he used to go to collect funds. And this is what he said in Patna, and I quote, "Now the main object of the Mohammedans of India should be to found a university. When I speak of a university, I do not mean a university like the University of Calcutta, a purely examining body. I mean a university like Oxford or Cambridge in England, or Granada, Cordova, or Baghdad in old times, the abode of learned men, where students live in an atmosphere of ideas, great centers of intellectual life. Such a university can only be founded by the united efforts of the whole community." A speech of Lord Lytton, Viceroy and Governor General of India. I cannot doubt that the ceremony on behalf of which we are now assembled constitutes as a speech in the social progress of India under British rule, which is no less creditable to the past than pregnant with promise for the future. In this belief, I rejoice that I have been able to take part in it. Therefore, whilst warmly sympathizing with you in my appreciation of difficulties that you have encountered and thus far successfully overcome, and whilst cordially congratulating you on the success with which you have overcome them, I welcome the success not for your sake only, but for the sake of the whole empire, trusting it may prove a salutary incentive to similar efforts in other directions for the general diffusion not merely of intellectual culture, but of what is still more important, the appreciation of intellectual culture throughout India. Let me quote Sir Alfred C. Lyell when he addressed trustees of MAO College in 1883, that the institution had its origin in a legitimate feeling of sympathy with your co-religionists, with the Mohammedans of the country, is to me a sign that the mainspring of movement is strong, and the movement itself is likely to endure. W. Hunter, President of the Education Commission, on August 12, 1882, said in Aligarh, "Gentlemen, it is because this college in which we have now assembled forms the greatest and noblest effort ever made in India for the advancement of Mohammedan education, that the Commission determined to hold its first session of the northwestern provinces at Aligarh. We hope that our presence here will be taken as our public tribute of admiration to this splendid example of self-help. A few more such examples of self-help, and there would be no need of education commission in India." Sir MacDonald's speech. "Your address tells me that this college imparts religious instruction along with secular subjects. That is the system of education which, when opportunity offered, I have always striven to recommend as the true method. The great principle of morality are not the monopoly of any particular creed or sect. They may be inculcated in Mohammedan and Hindu as well as in Christian colleges and schools. And it is a great satisfaction to me to know that the directors of this college accept and act upon the rule that, to quote the works of address on this point, secular education without religious training is comparatively futile and ineffectual work. And then he continued to say, what Mohammedan patriotism and energy are capable of accomplishing in whatever direction they may turn. Another characteristic which seems to me most admirable is that while the college is essentially Mohammedan in its origin and purpose, its founders have followed no sectarian methods, but have carefully framed it according to the best English models and sought to combine in it the best features of the best English college and schools. The knowledge and culture of the West are brought within your reach side by side with the study of your own literature and traditions. So you saw Governor General after Governor General, Viceroy after Viceroy are admiring the work of MAO College, are assuring the management of MAO College that we will support you. And they did support. That brings me to the conversion of college into a university. Of course, you will recall that in Allahabad High Court, on the very second day of the argument, Justice Arun Tandon said, well, what you intended was to found a college, not a university. So maybe the college was a minority institution, but not AMU. And then I called Rahat Abrar Saab and I said that there is a speech of Sir Sayyid on the foundation day of college saying that this college may grow into a university. He sent me that speech and I filed as registrar that affidavit. After Sir Sayyid's death in 1898, Sir Sayyid Memorial Fund was instituted. People started collecting funds. Jafar Hussain, who was a magistrate, suggested that 1 rupee should be collected from each family, because government has said you have to raise funds. I will come back in the lecture to the kind of grants government gave to MAO College and Aligarh Muslim University. As far as government's financial help is concerned, if you look at early years, the amount of financial assistance was less, then it went up, then it came down, and then post-independence, when central government started financing all central universities, Aligarh also became a beneficiary. So 1898-99 total budget of MAO College was 72,830. Government grant was to the tune of 44,928, which is some 61.69%. In 1900-1901, total budget was 97,847. Government grant was 47,304, something like 48.34%. If you look at 1904-05, the government grant was 45%. 1905-06 came down 41.96%. If you go to 1911-12, it further came down 39.40%. If you look at 1917-18, just before MAO College got converted into university, government grant was 29.92%. The total budget now was 2,89,053 rupees, and the government grant was to the tune of 86,480. In 1919-1920, the government grant further came down 22.82%. Then in 1934, it was 29.93%. In 1942-43, it was 28.11%. Then in 1954, it went up up 48.45%. It came down in 1955-56 to 29.39%. 57, now UGC Act comes in 1956. 57-58, it went up to 64.63%. Next year, it further went up to 74.31%. In 65-66, it became 81.29%. Of course, minority institutions cannot insist on financial assistance. But Article 30, Clause 2 is absolutely clear that state in giving aid cannot discriminate against an institution just because it is a minority institution. But let me go to more authentic evidence of kind of exchanges which took place between MAO College and Government of India. Even Supreme Court recognized it, and Allahabad High Court mentioned it in their judgment. Long negotiations took place between the Muslim community and the government. If AMU is a government university, government need not consult Muslim community. Recently, Government of India passed farm laws. They did not consult farmers, and they are on the streets now. Since the Government of India considered this to be a novel experiment, both for BHU as well as for AMU, and that is why I have written in Outlook, forget about AMU, even BHU was a minority university. There are two methods in which minorities are defined. One is called the numerical inferiority test. If someone is less than 50%, that group is a minority. Of course, Hindus were not less than 50% in UP in 1915 when BHU Act was enacted. But there is another test to define minorities, quite popular test, internationally recognized. Test of powerlessness. So numerically they were superior in numbers, but of course in 1915, Hindus did not have a huge control of power. The power was with the British. And therefore, they were powerless. And therefore, it was a minority institution. Had Banaras been in undivided Kashmir or in one of the northeastern states where Christians are a majority, even today, BHU would have been a minority institution. So there were long negotiations. Justice Vanchu is right. But the negotiations were never on the question of recognition of degrees. I'll come to that. They were largely about what will be the nomenclature of the university. What will be the relationship with the government? And about the affiliating powers. There were all kinds of suggestions made. Justice Amir Ali has said that the new university should have power to affiliate each and every college all over the world. There were more realistic suggestions that at least any college within India, AMU should be able to recognize and affiliate to itself. The government's stand was that after the first Education Commission of 1901, affiliating universities are not good. Unitary universities are good. The government's argument was MAO College has done exceedingly well because of its residential life. What we are told in Aligarh, because of its culture, because of its traditions. And the government was saying same kind of academic standards you cannot maintain in the colleges you will affiliate to Aligarh Muslim University. But there was a huge debate on this, and there was quite a resistance. There were people who were saying that we will contribute only when our college is affiliated to Aligarh Muslim University. And therefore the promoters were finding it difficult to justify that one college in one town in UP is going to become a university and you give money for that. So true, as Aziz Basha recorded and Allahabad judgments recorded, that long negotiations took place between government and MAO college and Muslim community. Now I am going to read to you a reply by Raja of Mahmudabad to Sir S.H. Butler's letter. This letter is 12th of August 1912. And this is what Raja of Mahmudabad, who was the president of the Constitution Committee, MAO College was asked to draft their act. And this is what Raja Sahab said. What you call the external relations of the university, the decision of His Majesty's Secretary of State that the proposed university should not have powers of affiliation outside the locality in which it may be established, caused the members of the committee the deepest disappointment. Apart from that, other indications, if the views of such a representative body can be, as I believe it is, the true index of public opinion of the Muslimans, the decision of Secretary of State in this matter seems clearly to have been a cause of great disappointment to the community, as you rightly apprehended it in your letter. And then they would also say that the Viceroy should not be the Chancellor. Muslim community wanted Viceroy to be the Chancellor. So Muslim community was not averse to close relationship with government. But this relationship of government was to have better governance. What is the law? Minorities have right to establish and administer their institutions. They have a right to administer. They do not have a right to maladminister. Why Sir Sayyid in his laws incorporated close association of the college with the government? Because he thought some supervision by the government will ensure better governance. It is in the same spirit that in fact MAO college management wanted that when MAO college is converted into a university, the Viceroy himself should become the Chancellor, and this Secretary of State did not agree. And then Raja Sahab is mentioning this, that the Viceroy should not be the Chancellor, that university should elect its own Chancellor, and that the powers which it was proposed to vest in Chancellor should be exercised by the Governor General in Council, with one exception, namely that the professor should be appointed without the previous approval of Governor General in Council. The committee has received this decision with great disappointment. Similarly, another contentious issue, both about BHU as well as for AMU, because the Secretary of State was not happy with word Muslim in AMU and word Hindu in BHU. So Raja Sahab is responding to Butler's letter. In the concluding paragraph of your letter, you tell me that the Secretary of State has decided that the proposed university should in future be styled the University of Aligarh. This decision has caused the committee much pain, and in view of the fact that it goes against the long cherished and deeply felt sentiment of the entire Muslim community, the committee trusts it will also be reconsidered. That's how it got delayed. Otherwise, Aligarh would have become a university in 1911 or 1912. Then the letter of Mr. Butler to Raja Sahab. He mentioned all this, that Sir Sayyid's dream to have a university of Mohammedans. That informal discussion took place between management and Butler, and this is what the Secretary of State is saying, to which Raja Sahab just responded. Similar letter Harcourt Butler wrote to Maharaja of Darbhanga in July 2014. And again he mentioned Hindu and Muslim universities because the government has taken the position that both will get a similar kind of charter. And here again Butler says that they recognize that the government of India is impersonal body situated at a distance and cannot give that close personal attention to university which is required in case of a new institution of novel type. As you know, in 1911-12 they were saying Governor General in Council will have all the powers. And now they are suggesting let the Lieutenant Governor of UP be the Chancellor for BHU. Now that brings me to AMU Act of 1920. And this AMU Act of 1920 in itself, in my opinion, to a very great extent incorporated everything which Muslim community has been demanding except the affiliation powers. That brings me to the 1920 Act, which converted MAO College into Aligarh Muslim University. In my opinion, both Supreme Court as well as Allahabad High Court did not appreciate minute details of 1920 Act. Their reading of 1920 Act is wrong. Look at section 2. Where long title of the act is given, an act to establish and incorporate a teaching and residential Muslim university at Aligarh. Shakespeare has said, after all, what is there in the name? But the names are important. The mere fact that it is a Muslim university indicates its character. Then in the preamble again it is said, whereas it is expedient to establish and incorporate a teaching and residential Muslim university at Aligarh. Justice Vanchu has spent a lot of time on word establish and incorporate, but conveniently forgot Muslim university. Then section 4 retains the continuity of MAO College with Aligarh Muslim University. Even today, if you want to make a donation to MAO College, and I will very strongly urge you to make such a donation, that money will go to Aligarh Muslim University. If you make a gift or a will in favor of X, can that money or property be given to Y? No. Except when X and Y are one and same. When 1920 Act clearly says all gifts and wills which were made for MAO College or Foundation Committee or Muslim University Association shall go to Aligarh Muslim University. That means both MAO College and Aligarh Muslim University are one and same. And if they are one and same, you cannot say MAO College is a minority institution and Aligarh Muslim University is not. What are the powers of the university? Section 5, Clause 2, to promote Oriental and Islamic studies and give instruction in Muslim theology and religion. This is important. Then also, in terms of powers to promote Islamic learning and Muslim theology, Section 7, a reserve fund was created. Muslim community was asked to raise 30 lakhs as Hindu community was asked to raise 50 lakhs. Allahabad High Court Chief Justice A.N. Ray said that the Muslim character of AMU has evaporated over the years. This is a reserve fund. Reserve fund cannot be used. Only the interest on the reserve fund can be used. And therefore this contribution of Muslim community continues to remain in AMU. Then Section 8 made a special provision for the observance of parda by exempting women from then Section 8 makes a special provision for the observance of the parda by exempting women from attending lectures and tutorial classes. If it is not a Muslim institution, what it is? Section 9 makes a provision for compulsory instructions in Muslim religion for Muslim students. Section 17, Chancellor shall be elected by the court, shall be the head of the university. Pro-Chancellor shall be elected by the court. Section 18, Vice-Chancellor, Section 19, shall be elected by the court from amongst its members. And who will be the member of the court? Only a Muslim. Same provision was there in BHU. Court will be the supreme governing body. Then Section 28, no statute dealing with instruction of Muslim students in Muslim theology shall require the approval of the visiting board and Governor General in Council. You cannot amend any statute without the prior approval of Governor General. But when it comes to instruction for Muslim students in Muslim religion and theology, no approval of the visiting board and no approval of Governor General is required, and this is incorporated in the Act. This is the relationship of Parliament with Aligarh Muslim University. To determine the minority character of Aligarh Muslim University, you need to look at 1920 Act. The jurisprudence on Article 30 of the Constitution is absolutely clear. Fundamental rights are to be read retrospectively. Number of pre-Constitution institutions, be it in St. Stephen's or Father Proust or Xavier's, they were given minority character. Statute 8. In the annexure, list of 124 foundation members is given. All of them are Muslims. All of them were the trustees of MAO College. "40 persons who have been educated at MAO College shall be the members of the court. 20 persons will be elected as ordinary members from All India Muslim Education Conference. And 33 members will be elected by the court, 9 persons to represent Islamia colleges and other Muslim institutions, 15 persons engaged in learned professions, 9 persons learned in Muslim and Oriental studies." I will return to this in a minute, but the 1920 Act is absolutely clear as far as minority character of Aligarh Muslim University is concerned. What disturbs me? 1920 Act provided for the visiting board. 1951 amendment deletes the provisions of visiting board. 1968, when Supreme Court is deciding, because of the visiting board, they are saying AMU is not a minority institution. The problem is not with the government or parliament. The problem of AMU has been with the judiciary. I will return to it in a minute. Let me now come to the amendments. Who makes amendment? Parliament. We are a parliamentary democracy. The Prime Minister has a majority in Lok Sabha. So between legislature and executive, we don't have similar kind of separation as you have in United States. And therefore, when I am talking of parliament, who is piloting the bill? Government. So let us look at both government and parliament together. 1950 we got the constitution. Constitution says in Article 28, compulsory religious instruction cannot be given. So a consequential amendment was made. It makes no change on the minority character of the university. From 1920 till 1951, the court had overwhelming majority of Muslims because the law provided only a Muslim can be a member. In executive council and academic council, there was domination of Muslims. We became a new republic. And therefore we said, what is so obvious? Why say it? And therefore this provision was removed. In any case, the law on Article 30 is clear that it is not necessary that the management should exclusively be from the community which is administering a minority institution. If I am backward, I am setting up an educational institution, I need experts from other communities. So my management committee may have non-Muslims. I am going to demonstrate to you. In MAO college rules, while only a trustee could be a member, while only a Muslim could be a trustee, when it came to the executive committee or the academic committee, non-Muslims could also be the members. So 1951 amendment is not that problematic. Then we had the unfortunate incident on the university campus on 23rd April 1965, in which Vice Chancellor was injured. When you have indiscipline on campus, how will any government react? The government concluded that the university is not administered efficiently. And I am going to show you, the Vice Chancellor asked the government that I need extraordinary powers. The court and EC are creating problems for me. And therefore 1965 Ordinance and 1965 Amendment Act, Mr. Chagla said it on the floor of the House that government is not doing it on its own. But the Vice Chancellor himself has requested such measures. My thesis is that the 1965 amendment was a temporary measure to tackle the problem of maladministration. And that is why government brought in 72 amendment and then 81 amendment. Mr. Chagla repeatedly said on the floor of the House that substantive amendments will be brought in. But what is more important, that the Muslim community did not understand what this amendment was all about. And the government did not clarify their doubts. And therefore, Aziz Basha went to Supreme Court. And very strangely, AMU was condemned unheard it was not even made the party in Aziz Basha. All the documents were with Aligarh Muslim University. Aziz Basha did not have access to documents. The case was not argued well. A positivist court, an ICS Chief Justice, Manchu, who has been a district magistrate in Aligarh, gave an erroneous judgment, about which H.M. Sirvai has said that this judgment is productive of great public mischief and must be overruled. Fortunately, now Supreme Court has agreed to refer this matter to a larger bench of 7 judges and to reconsider Aziz Basha, which in my opinion is erroneous both on facts as well as law. But if you look at government, 1965, both court as well as executive council are packed with visitor nominees. But when visitor nominated members, these were the very same members who have earlier been the members of the court and the members of the executive council of the university. And therefore, through these amendments, university's minority character was not changed. Let us look at 1965 amendment and let us look at what MC Chagla said while introducing the bill. I quote Mr. Chagla. I see from the amendments that criticism is made that the court is nominated. It is not elected. And I have sacrificed the principle of democracy. But all these may be considered when we have substantive legislations. He is not saying substantive legislation, but legislations. And that is why the 72 amendment, which Professor Nurul Hasan brought in, restored the democratic character. And the 81 amendment restored the historical character. Historical character in constitutional terms means the minority character. This is what Chagla said. Today we are dealing with a temporary measure, a provisional measure, a measure enacted to meet a particular situation. Normalcy has not been restored in Aligarh. Action that has to be taken has not been taken. The students who are listening me must understand, if you create problems for your vice chancellor, your university will suffer. Mr. Chagla urged the parliament to pass the bill in the interest of the university. And this is what he said. Before I sit down, sir, I want to repeat the assurance I have given to this house that substantive legislation will be introduced as early as possible. We have a select committee then. After that, Aligarh will have a constitution worthy of its traditions and of its past. But today I beg of the House to remember that this bill is being passed in the interest of Aligarh Muslim University, in the interest of discipline, in the interest of normalcy, in the interest of secularism for which we stand. We want these special powers because, as I said, we want to root out a section. It is a small section which stands for reactionalism, obscurantism, and fanaticism. This is not what should prevail in the university, unquote. Other members who participated in the debate also favored preservation of minority character of Aligarh Muslim University. Mr. M.R. Masani, while concluding his speech, observed, and I quote, "Therefore it is in the spirit of our multi-religious democracy that I appeal to this House to pass this bill, but not to do anything to change the Muslim character of Aligarh, which must remain Muslim University." Mr. Chagla, who was education minister and piloted the bill, had quoted Chatterjee committee report, which also said, for although the minority institution, Aligarh Muslim University should be looked upon as the nation's contribution to the promotion of that composite culture in which all the people of this land can take legitimate pride. And then he specifically quoted that 1965 ordinance was promulgated not out of Union of India's own initiative, but on the advice of the Vice Chancellor, who wanted the university constitution to be suspended, as he wanted special powers in order to put down indiscipline. Now, Mr. Chagla specifically said that the ordinance and the 1965 Act were not intended to in any way destroy the character of the university. I am quoting from his speech. We have suggested a nominated court and a nominated executive council in place of elected executive council and elected court. It was necessary to do so because it was only with a small compact body that the Vice Chancellor could root out this particular section and bring normalcy to the university. Mind the words now. The character of university has in no way been touched. It is the government who passed the ordinance, not in order to destroy or change its character, to say that is entirely fallacious. Then Mr. Chagla went on to give reasons. And again he said, the purpose is not to change the character of Aligarh Muslim University, but to bring in discipline in the university. Number of times in the speech, he is saying purpose is not to change the character. When he admits that AMU is a national institution, an institution of national importance, then again he is talking in terms of power of the parliament to legislate. But here again he explains, when I say that Aligarh Muslim University is an institution of national importance, I want to say that Aligarh Muslim University is an institution in which greatest emphasis should be placed upon Muslim culture. Muslim culture had made a great contribution to our Indian culture, to the composite culture of India. And I want Aligarh Muslim University to be the symbol of culture which has made such a great contribution what our Indian culture is today. I want Aligarh Muslim University to be a center of Muslim culture, where students will read Urdu, Persian, Arabic and Muslim culture and Islamic philosophy. I am not changing the character. This is what he is saying when he is talking of Parliament's power to legislate. As promised by Mr. Chagla, we will bring in substantive amendment. One amendment came in 72, which removed visitor nominees from the court and from the executive council to a very large extent. But a more substantive, detailed amendment came in 1981. 1981 amendment was passed by the parliament. 1981 amendment shows Parliament's reaction to Supreme Court judgment, Parliament's understanding of 1920 Act, and Parliament's understanding of the character of Aligarh Muslim University. And I said we live in parliamentary democracies. It also demonstrates government's understanding about AMU's character. Srimati Sheila Kaul, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education and Social Welfare, introduced 1981 amendment, and this is what she said. The enactment of AMU Act 1920 was an important landmark in the development of our university education. However, it was not the starting point of history of Aligarh Muslim University. That's why, I started with MAO College. Those who think AMU was established in 1920 have not read history correctly. This is what she said. However, it was not the starting point of the history of Aligarh Muslim University. Indeed, as far back in 1870, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan realized that backwardness of Muslim community in India was mainly due to neglect of modern education. After his death in 1898, the idea of establishing a university with MAO College as its nucleus gathered strength. Muslim University Foundation Committee started collecting funds required for the university. After a series of discussions between the government and Muslim University Foundation representatives in 1920, the government enacted the Aligarh Muslim University Act. And then that vital statement by the minister, she went on to say, a fact of history is something which law cannot alter. True, under Article 141, law laid down by Supreme Court of India is binding on all courts. But no law can change history. 1981 amendment was brought in to correctly state history, which Justice Vanchu did not understand. She went on to say, the enactment of 1920 Act was in fact the culmination of a long cherished ideal of Muslims of India. It was not only that it not only found expression in the establishment of university, they had contributed a substantial part of properties and funds which went into its making. Then the minister further said, for a long time, Muslims of India have been concerned that the law governing Aligarh Muslim University does not unambiguously recognize this historical fact. There has been a unanimous demand of Muslims of India that this historical fact should be recognized by suitable amendment of AMU Act. Their demand enjoys broad support all over the country. In fact, almost all the political parties in the country have supported this demand. The acceptance of historical reality that the initial establishment of university was not by government but by Muslims of India is reflected in our proposal to amend the title and preamble of the Act. Further, we are amending the definition of the expression university in the Act to make it beyond any shadow of doubt that the university was the educational institution of their choice established by Muslims of India. Having thus restored to the university its historical character, we thought it necessary to build into the Act a provision which would empower the university to promote especially the educational and cultural advancement of Muslims of this country. Section 52C. Now many people say that, well, fact of establishment was cured by 1981 Act. As you remember that in Aziz Basha in 1968, Supreme Court said, there is nothing in the Act which shows Muslims of India established it. And he took a very restrictive meaning of word establishment, that is bringing into existence. In 1970 itself, in Mother Provincial, Supreme Court had said, establishment also means found. This is a whole subject. What is the meaning of meaning? When a word is used, you get some image in your mind. That is the meaning. When Aligarh Muslim University expression is used, do you get picture of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan or Governor General in Council? And if you get Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, he was the founder, not the Governor General in Council. Now this opening statement very clearly said that Parliament is is stating the historical reality. It is saying Parliament did not establish. Muslims of India established as an institution of their choice. When you are overturning a Supreme Court judgment, some amount of decency is required. Do the minimum. Supreme Court itself in Aziz Basha has said, word establish and administer in Article 30 are to be read conjointly. Minorities will get the right to administer if they have established. Basha said Aligarh Muslim University was not established by Muslims of India. Therefore, they don't have right to administer. The petitioners have said packing university court and EC with visitors nominee is taking away Muslim community's right to administer. Parliament explained establishment. Once it is clear that Parliament clarified who established, the right to administer will automatically follow. Unfortunately, Allahabad High Court struck down both 2L and 52C. Allahabad High Court accepted the arguments of Aligarh Muslim University that the 1981 Act is a declaration of its minority character. But they said it is a brazen overruling. When you have to check the constitutionality of parliamentary law, what is the test? One, the subject on which Parliament has enacted should not be in the state list. AMU is very much in the union list, entry number 63. Two, it should not violate any fundamental right. 1981 Act does not violate any fundamental right. It promotes right under Article 30. And then several other members expressed similar sentiments in the 1981 debate. Let me quote Indrajit Gupta. Sir, before I make comments on certain provisions of this bill, I should make it clear, as far as the main purpose of this bill is concerned, it is to invest the Aligarh Muslim University with a minority character as envisaged in Article 30. We fully support it. I am also glad it has been specifically stated here in the powers of the university that university should promote especially the educational and cultural advancement of Muslims of India. This is a good thing which has been put here. I also support the idea that court should be restored to the position of supreme governing body, 1920 provision. V.N. Gadgil answered the Supreme Court's anxiety about the recognition of degrees. Supreme Court in Basha has said, Allahabad High Court has quoted it, that Section 6 of the AMU Act 1920 says that the degrees of Aligarh Muslim University shall be recognized at par with degrees of other universities. I am going to show to you that the Constitution Committee of the university, then Statutes and Rules and Regulation Committee, clearly suggested that degrees of AMU will be recognized at par with other universities. Government accepted it. Between the long negotiations between government and Muslim community, the question of degrees was never discussed. Chief Justice Vanchu speculated about the Muslim community and wrongly and erroneously concluded that in lieu of recognition of degrees, Muslim community surrendered its minority character. The statement itself is wrong. Any student of constitutional law and civil liberties knows fundamental rights cannot be waived. Xavier said it in so many words in para 161. Assuming for the sake of argument that Muslim community in 1919 and 1920 in lieu of recognition of degrees surrendered it, nothing prevents the Muslim community of today to assert their right to management, their right to administration. V.N. Gadgil said, I don't want to go into the technicality of it. On a judgment given in England in the case of St. David College against the Ministry of Education in 1951, that case also, strictly speaking, does not apply to the case of Aligarh Muslim University. But the judges choose to rely on that decision. In my submission, it was wrong on their part to come to that conclusion. He quoted Graham's biography of Sir Sayyid as to the original intention of college, and then said, in my submission, the suggested amendment in the preamble and the amendments to the definition of university and all the rest of the provisions will achieve that objective, namely restoring the original intention. And the original intention, as I told you, is given in the laws made by Sir Sayyid, that the college is primarily for the education of Muslims. Subramaniam Swami, he himself favored the restoration of minority character. In 1981 debates, this is what he said. I am not doubly sure that whatever he has said represents the opinion of party, but we do regard that Aligarh Muslim University not as just a university, but as a movement which was started with the objects and purpose which Mr. Gadgil just appropriately pointed out. But the basic points about Aligarh Muslim University are its minority character and autonomy. It was no doubt established by the Muslims with a special responsibility to function as a center for Islamic and Oriental studies, and especially for the cultural and educational advance of Muslims. I think there is no disagreement on this. And then Zainul Bashar, he said that the university had been deprived of its original historical character and of its minority character in 1965 and of its autonomy, as Dr. Subramaniam Swami said in 1972. In those days, government of Mrs. Gandhi was in power, and he says now we are restoring that character. Mr. Chitta Basu said, the bill which has been presented in this house is a long-standing demand of the minority community of our country, particularly the Muslims. It has to be recognized that the entire Muslim community of our country desires that this university should be accorded the minority character within the meaning of Article 30. Aligarh Muslim University is not prized possession of the minority community, but it also constitutes the great pride for the people of India as a whole. Therefore, it is in the fitness of things that the demands are being made to fulfill the urge of the minority community of our country. But at the same time, I want to mention about the democratization of institution itself. Recognition of minority character is not something which is antithesis of secularism. And then Ms. Sheila Kaul, replying to debate, said, if at any time of our history, any of our minority groups were to feel apprehensive that the cultural heritage of their institutions is in danger of being effaced or obscured, I am certain all the members were with me that such apprehension will wreck our democratic base as well as spirit of secularism incorporated in the concept of our nationalhood. It was only with these ideas in view that we brought in the present legislation to amend the AMU Act in order to assure the Muslim community that their culture and institutions will be safeguarded by the state. The minister went on to say that earlier amendments were in good faith, not out of individual fancy, of personal whim, to bring a generic uniformity among central universities. She is talking of 65 and 72 amendments. She clearly explained that since the Muslim community in the country has had the feeling that these amendments have had the effect of undermining the minority character of the institution, our party, before it assumed its power, made a pledge to reiterate that the minority character of Aligarh Muslim University will be assured. The present bill, which we have discussed in the afternoon, has been introduced in fulfillment of this pledge and has been formulated on the basis of the consensus in the welfare of this institution. Now, I don't want to really go into details of judgments, even though I was intending to do that. But I'm really surprised. Aziz Basha itself was not able to see one argument they make is, well, okay, university court consisted of only Muslims, but executive council and academic council did not consist of all Muslim members. I demonstrated to you, this was our choice. During MAO college days itself, while we said trustees will be Muslims, but syndicate and academic council will consist of experts. But both executive council as well as academic council was controlled by the Muslim court, all Muslim court, exclusively Muslim court. Basha has said that recognition of degrees led to the surrender of minority character. I just told you fundamental rights cannot be surrendered. Visiting board. A visiting board itself consisted of executive council of the university. In any case, in 1951, it was deleted. Lord Rector was given powers because we wanted it. Administration means day-to-day administration. What we wanted and what is provided in AMU Act is external supervision, distant supervision. If vice chancellors, executive council, or university court go against the act, go against the statutes, against the ordinances, they must be forced to comply with act, statutes, and ordinances. But Aligarh Muslim University, as I said, as far as government is concerned, as far as parliament is concerned, received lot of support from the government, received lot of support from the parliament. It is only in the context of judiciary that we got some judgments which are problematic. But as I said in the beginning, this institution, Aligarh Muslim University, which is celebrating its centenary today, according to all governor generals and viceroys, is not an ordinary institution. It is not like any other central university. It has a purpose. It is a movement. This university is a distinct kind of university. We are 100 years old. I am sure AMU will celebrate many more centuries and centenaries. But I am tempted to conclude by quoting MacDonald. I admire the institution, as I admire the man who is self-reliant and proudly independent. While duly sensitive or appreciative of the benevolent regard of the government, we must interact with the government, I believe, even if we don't agree with its ideology. This is what Sir Syed has taught us. On many issues, he did not agree with British government. He is writing Asbab-e-Baghawat-e-Hind. He is disagreeing with Moore, yet including him as one of the visitors of the university. And we must also introspect and judge ourselves. Have we succeeded in this mission? Let me quote MacDonald's speech in Stretchley Hall. It is not too much to hope that this college will grow into the Mohammedan University of the future, and this place will become Cordova of the East, and that in these cloisters Mohammedan genius will discover and under the protection of the British Crown work out that social, religious, and political regeneration of which neither Makkah nor Istanbul afford a precedent. If we have not achieved this, this is the time we assess ourselves and dedicate ourselves to Sir Sayyid mission. I am thankful to Mehndi Saab for permitting me to make this long speech, and also to Alumni Association of Washington DC, in particular Afzal Usmani Saab, for giving me this opportunity to express my views on this very important subject. I could not do justice with the judicial verdicts, but some other day we will pick up that topic. Thank you very much.